Okay, here we are. This is Jay Brown Yoga Talks podcast. My name is Jay Brown. How are you? Let me mention off top here that today's episode is a rare and unusual occasion where I give myself permission to diverge from the primary wheelhouse of the show. Most of the time, I utilize these conversations as a form of continuing education. And I think that many listeners utilize it in that way. And it's often mentioned to someone, hey, you should listen to this podcast. This person came on and they talked about this thing. And, people find out about this show as continuing education for yoga practitioners and teachers. And if this is your first time ever here and you came for that, then I don't think this is the right episode for you to listen to as a first one. You should go back into the archive, even just a week or two ago or a couple weeks ago. You'll see it's chock full of deep wisdom and insights and wonderful conversations about yoga. And I would encourage you to maybe start there first, because there is one other aspect of producing this podcast, which has to do with my personal experience of yoga and processing my life through that lens. So sometimes I will do an episode like today's where the focus is really more on my personal story and my life and less on traditional yoga education. So I just mention that because some people aren't as interested in this aspect of the show, my personal stuff. And sometimes people like to skip over these intros and just get to the conversation. And if that's you, go listen to another episode or tune back in next week. But if you are a regular listener, then you know that even just a few weeks ago, I had Daniel Simpson on, and we did a role reversal where he asked me a bunch of questions about making this show and some of the behind the scenes aspects. And one of the things we discussed was how much it's tied into what's happening with me. And I have shared a lot over the years. And for those of you out there who have listened and connected with that, I felt like this was called for. So just a little background for someone who hasn't listened to those previous episodes. If you go back to December of 2021, I published a podcast with my daughter, Annabelle, when she was 7 years old. And that was the fulfillment of a promise, because her older sister, Roslyn, did an episode with me when she turned 7, and Annabelle knew that. And so she was waiting till turn 7 so that she could do her episode too. And so I fulfilled that promise. And it's a lovely, profoundly sweet, and I don't know, it's a lovely episode. I encourage you to go listen to it. But you see, a strange thing happened, because within a few months of publishing that episode, they lifted the pandemic restrictions at my daughter's school, the mask wearing and the distancing of the desks. And you can go back to another episode I put out at the end of last year, at the end of December 2022, where I did a year-end check-in, and I gave people an update on what was happening with Annabelle, because when the restrictions were lifted at school, she had a mental health break, and she was ultimately diagnosed with OCD and generalized anxiety disorder. And we got care for her. The usual protocols are medication and therapy, and we started her on both of those things. And when I recorded that check-in at the end of last year, we had decided to try to taper her off of the meds to see if she could be okay without them. And we decided that because she'd been doing so much better, and it was impossible to tell how much the medication was helping her. And I felt like I was observing symptoms that I thought were attributable to the medications, and we wanted to see. So we took a risk, and it was a little bit of a scary thing to do. and we decided to tape her off with the consultation of her doctor. And so about a month after I recorded that check-in where I shared that we were taking her off of the meds, she had been completely off of the meds for, I don't know, maybe a week or two. She'd been mostly off, and we tapered her off over a long period. And ultimately, at some point, she was really doing great, and we were feeling so blessed that things had taken such a better turn. And Annabelle, I don't know this to be true, but I feel like Annabelle wanted me to know that she was doing better. So one day, out of nowhere, she said, "Hey, Dad, I really want to record another podcast. I really liked the last one that we did, and I feel like it's time for us to do another one." So I immediately said yes, and we went up in the attic, and we recorded the conversation that you're going to hear today. Now, we recorded this months ago at the end of January, and I felt so happy about it because, as you'll hear, it really was an indication that I felt like things were going to be okay with her. And I felt so grateful for that. And after we recorded it, I decided not to publish it because I felt like the last time I published a podcast with Annabelle, it was all like wonderful and everybody emailed me how fantastic she was. And then like 2 months later, she completely fell apart. And then things got better and we recorded this podcast. And I think some part of me had this like superstition that if I published this podcast with her where we talk about her getting off the medication and how much better she's doing, that it would like jinx the situation or something, and that she'd have a bad turn and it would go in a bad direction. I didn't want to risk it. I didn't want to risk jinxing anything, So I didn't publish it, and I didn't really have any intention of publishing it. But then, maybe 2 weeks ago, we had a follow-up appointment with her doctor, and it was the first appointment that we had since she's been off the medication. It's been like 4.5 months since she's been completely off of it. And it was just a very important appointment. And unless something drastically different happens than what's been happening, we're hoping it'll be the last. And in that meeting, we discussed with the doctor that we had recorded this podcast and some of the things that we had talked about. And Annabelle turned to me and she said, "Dad, you need to publish that podcast." Because the last time we did a podcast, we got a lot of feedback. And also, when I talked about Annabelle's OCD on the show, I got a lot of feedback from like other parents who were dealing with similar things. And Annabelle just said, "We have to publish it." And I told her that I would. And all of this coincided with the fact that this week I'm not at home. So if you are listening to this on the day that it publishes or the day after, I'm in Hawaii. And regular listeners know how significant that might be. I talked about it in the past. We got an invitation to join my sister in Hawaii. I don't have the money to do it, but I threw caution into the wind because I felt like we needed something to celebrate getting through the difficulty and trauma of the last year. And my eldest daughter, Rosalind, just graduated from middle school. She's going to high school next year. I don't know how many more opportunities we're going to even have to do something like this. So if you are listening to this on the day that it is published or the day after, I'm hoping that we're having a good time in Hawaii. I hope right now I'm like laying on a beach and drinking a fruity drink or seeing some mystical wonder of nature or something. I sure hope we're having a good family vacation. But I'm recording this a week and a half in advance, which is unusual. I normally record the intros and outros for an episode the day before it publishes because I like to keep it fresh like that. But I'm doing this because I don't want to have to work. I don't want to have to do anything with the podcast while I'm in Hawaii. So I'm recording this in advance, and All of this is to say that the appointment with my daughter's doctor, her looking to me and telling me that I need to publish this episode, the fact that I needed to record in advance so that I could put out an episode while I was away, all of this has come together to what you will hear. And again, I'm just so profoundly grateful that things are going in the direction that they're going. It was a joy for me to record this, and I'm very happy to be sharing it with you today. Real quick before we get to it, on the yoga education side of things, I want to remind listeners that if you're interested in doing my year-long teacher training, we are currently offering the ability to start anytime at half the regular price. That's a limited offer until August. You can start anytime for half the regular price. Also, I've got some upcoming in-person events. July 29th, I'm going to be in Garden City, New York. September 23rd and 24th, I'm going to be in Manchester, England. And September 30th and October 1st, I'm going to be in Dublin, Ireland. That is July 29th in Garden City, New York. September 23rd and 24th in Manchester, England. And September 30th and October 1st in Dublin, Ireland. If you're listening and you live in one of those places, come hang out with me. You can find out about the training, the in-person events, and all the other stuff. There's a whole range of options. You can find all of my stuff at jbrownyoga.com. Okay, y'all. I will leave it there. I'll touch base with you on the other side for a moment, but let's go ahead and listen to this. Let's listen to this conversation I had with Annabelle Brown. Okay, we're here once again in the attic. Me and Annabelle.
Hi.
Are you feeling nervous already?
What is that supposed to mean?
I don't know. It just seemed like you had a look on your face, like maybe you're feeling nervous, but...
Not really, no.
Okay.
I really enjoyed the last podcast, so I was wondering if we could do one again, and I'm glad we could.
Me too. What was it about the last podcast that you enjoyed?
I don't know, I just felt like we could, it was like we could, we really communicated a lot, and it felt good to talk a lot about how you were feeling, and just, just talk. It felt kind of good to, express how you were feeling.
Yeah. I think that feels very good. That's why I do the podcast, I think, because I get a chance to express how I feel and think about things, and then I get to hear from other people who express what they think and feel, and there's something that gets shared there, and that feels very good. So I think I know what you mean.
Okay. Well, great to be here. Even though it's not really random that I'm here because it's my own house, but okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm sitting here thinking about the last time we recorded, and it's been a while since that happened. A lot's changed.
Yeah. I feel like my OCD has been a lot more, and I'm feeling a lot more comfortable. So.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm really glad to hear you say that, because that makes me feel happy that you're feeling that way. And, that podcast that we recorded that one, right before everything happened with your OCD. Is that something you want to talk about?
Sure. Because, I used to be really worried that, I couldn't touch anything like my hands couldn't even touch my own hair. It didn't feel good. It wasn't fun. It was really like hard to feel that way because no matter how much I felt uncomfortable, I felt like I had to do it. And I don't know, but was it either your birthday or was it Father's Day that I kind of just like changed? But then it got worse and then it changed again. It was really confusing. I have to say, I didn't even really truly know what was happening.
Yeah, we didn't either. But it feels like you know a little bit more now about what's happening with you, right?
Yeah, it's easier to look back on something and talk about it than talk about something that's happening right now to you.
That's true. Things are often clearer in retrospect. That's what they call that, when you look back at it from now. I guess I'm curious, do you have any ideas about why that happened to you? Why all that happened?
You mean the OCD?
Yeah.
Well, I heard that like some other family members have gotten OCD, and I've kind of heard that Rosalind had some, and I heard that you had OCD too.
A little bit.
But, so I think it was kind of from the family line. It started kind of early. How old was I when it started?
I mean, that was recently when you were 7. When you first turned 7, that's when we recorded the podcast. That was right before, like right after your 7th birthday.
Well, yeah, because I was really excited to take the podcast. I'm like, yes. I've been waiting for a really long time, and when I turned 7, I could finally have a podcast.
Right.
Because if I had a podcast when I was like 2 years old, I'd be like, Mama, Dada.
Yeah, and also you had heard your sisters, so I think you really wanted to have one too, because you saw that your sister had one.
Yeah, I felt like it was kind of like really stressful because I thought I was always going to like turn into someone else if I touched them or touched whatever they were doing, whatever they touched. And it was like, I don't know. Sometimes I felt uncomfortable if wind touched my hair, which sounds really dumb, but it didn't feel good, and I couldn't like really touch anything, so I was really uncomfortable. And then nowadays I am in bed when I read, or Mom reads to me, but I used to have to be like out of bed, like shaking my whole body because like I felt uncomfortable. It sounds really weird, but it was really just didn't feel good.
Well, do you have any ideas about what's helped you? Like what's helped that get better? Because you're not doing any of that now. So what do you think are the things that have
I felt
helped?
like it was Father's Day, or was it your birthday? When we went mini golfing.
That was Father's Day, I believe.
Okay. On Father's Day, I don't know, I just felt like I was really determined to make you have a really good Father's Day, and I didn't want you to like have a bad Father's Day, so just like kind of went to sleep and I woke up and I felt kind of better. And then I got kind of worse and I felt better again. But I feel like the things that made me feel better was that I had like determination on specific things for someone else, or had like a specific goal that made me try to be better, kind of.
Well, that's really sweet that the reason why you started to get better is because you wanted me to have a good Father's Day. That makes me feel really good, sweetie. I guess my other question about that is sometimes still, like, there's little moments where I feel like you'll get mad, but it's not like before. Like, even the other day when we were walking home from school and I was a little upset, just shortly after we got back, you came up to me and you said, sorry, I'm just in a bad mood. And I guess I really, I guess I'm just curious about how you're feeling now with your OCD. Like you said at the very beginning, you feel like it's not as bad. You have a little bit more control over it. Mm-hmm. What are the things that you're doing right now that help you feel like more in charge of it or something?
I don't know. I just realized I shouldn't have to like make my body suffer for this random thing inside my head. And it took me a long time to realize that, but at some point I did, and it felt so good because my body really hurt.
Yeah. It's nice to do nice things for your body instead of do not nice things for your body, right?
Yeah.
And you know what else? I think Mrs. Gutshall has been really important. She's a really special teacher.
Yeah, she's really, really kind. It's hard to believe that Roslyn was in third grade when she was my age.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's right, because your sister, her birthday falls different, so she's a grade ahead in a way, yeah. Mm.
So if she birthday didn't fall different, she wouldn't be a grade ahead, and she would be in 7th grade instead of 8th.
Yeah, we had a decision with your sister whether or not she was going to be the youngest kid in class or the oldest kid in class. And we decided to let her be the youngest kid because she was ready. But where you landed, you're one of the oldest kids in the class.
Yeah. Right? But the very oldest is Piper. She's the very first birthday in the class. I think it was like October 9th to 12th, mm-hmm. like really, really early. Mm-hmm. And then it was, I think it was Roman. Yeah. And then he was like October 20th or something. And then the other birthdays came like really late then. Mm-hmm. And then all the other birthdays are at the next birthday is mine. So I'm like one of the oldest. I'm like the third oldest. And then Anders is one day younger than me, so.
Mm-hmm. Well, what else? You were the one who came up with this idea for us to record another podcast. Was there any other things that you thought we might want to talk about, or you just thought it would be fun to do another one?
Well, I don't know. I just wanted to feel better and just kind of talk about how I'm feeling.
That's pretty much why I do this show. Talk about how I'm feeling and have conversations that make me feel better. So that is the spirit of what I do with these microphones.
Is that a bad thing?
No, it's a good thing. It's the whole idea.
Okay, well.
Normally I'm up here in the attic all by myself. You're not up here with me.
I'm sorry. No. I have to go to school.
I know, but it's kind of fun to have you in this space with me.
Well, any other things that weren't the happiest or struggles that have happened lately?
Are you asking me that? Or are you going to say something about that?
I wasn't going to say anything.
Oh. Well, you know what I was going to ask you about is, this is the last week of your medicine.
Really?
Yeah. Literally in 5, I think there's 5 more days, and then we're not going to take it anymore, or at least not for now. And I guess I'm wondering about that. Do you have any ideas or observations about that medicine that you were taking? Did you notice it, what it did or what it didn't do?
At first, it felt it didn't feel like normal lemonade because, I get to put lemonade in it. But it didn't feel like normal lemonade, but it had this thing in it that made it taste so different. But that wasn't bad for 5 days. And then it got just really, really gross kind of.
Yeah.
And then I felt like it was so hard to eat it. It tasted disgusting. And it was like I went to bed and it was like I had this disgusting taste in my mouth. And I felt kind of like nauseous almost after drinking it. I woke up in the morning and I'd be really energetic. And then as it got less, I started waking up in the morning and not being, being more tired, but not like in a bad way. But before I used to be really energetic when I woke up in the morning, and now I'm kind of like just normal waking up. And so that's kind of a weird thing, but that's kind of how I felt. And these days it just tastes like lemonade, and it's really not a bother, except if I'm not thirsty, it's kind of annoying to have to drink something, but that's fine.
Well, like I said, only a few days left, and I'm happy that you're feeling okay, because that's just what we want to make sure, that as we stop taking the medicine, that you still feel okay, and that if those other kinds of feelings or things that were happening before happen again, you'll tell us, right?
Yeah. Like last time, well, I really don't, I just wanted to say that, well, I have to be honest, I would like to tell you, but last time I feel like for some reason I couldn't, because I didn't really know what was going on, and it was just, there's this one thing in my head, and it's like this beam of light, and everything else is darkness, and it's a perfectly straight line, and nothing can wiggle or move or vibrate a single bit. And I was not willing to make my own path, kind of, and I just had to go that one really, really straight path that was not flowy at all. And so I didn't feel like, I didn't know what I could or could not do. It felt really weird, and I felt like, I don't know, I couldn't tell you guys stuff, and I hope it's not the same if I ever get it again. But I'll try my best to tell you guys stuff, but I have to be honest, I can't make a true guarantee, because there's like 5% chance that might not happen. But let's hope that... Why are you laughing?
Because you're so sweet and smart, and you don't have to guarantee anything, and 5% is a pretty good ratio. But what I would say is that even you sitting here and talking to me about it now would sort of be, in my mind, kind of evidence that if it does come up again, you're going to know more about what's happening, you know? You've been spending all this time with Julie, and I think she kind of helps understand stuff. Or I don't know, we didn't even talk about Julie, but...
Well...
Do you think, what has it been like working with Julie?
Do people know that she's my therapist who are listening right now?
They do now, because you just told them. I've told them. I mentioned a little while ago I recorded something, and I talked about you, because people were wondering, and I told them that you had been doing better and that you had been seeing a therapist. So I think regular listeners do know that. Her name's Julie, and we really like her, right?
Yeah, I don't know what she does. I don't feel like she really, makes me feel better. Not in a bad way, but I'm just kind of glad she's not like, so, you can tell me anything you need to know, whatever your heart desires. No, she's just, kind of fun and, happy. I like her. I feel like we're more kind of like friends, and it's just fun to hang out with her. I have to be honest, I don't know if she's making me feel better or not, but she just kind of feels like my friend.
But you know what? That's what a good therapist is. A good therapist feels like that. That's what makes them a good therapist.
Yeah.
Because you have a good friend that you can be with and spend time with, and if you do need to talk about stuff, you have a person like that you can talk to.
Sadly, when I did need to talk about stuff, me and Julie weren't that good of friends, so I couldn't really talk about stuff.
Yeah, at the very beginning when things weren't so good.
I really didn't like her. I don't know why.
Well, that was an interesting thing. At some point, you just sort of changed your mind about that, too. You're like, oh, I think Julie would be a good person to hang out with, and you kind of just changed on that. That was an interesting thing that happened.
That I have no idea what just happened. That I have no idea what happened with it. I was talking to Mom about her, and then I realized, like, do I actually think that? And I told myself, why is she bad? And then I didn't really realize that very much. Why is she bad? So, that kind of happened, but anything other than that, not really. I don't really truly know what happened with that, as well as,
Well, you kind of just said it. I mean, that was a very interesting thing you just said, because there was some voice in your head that asked the question, do I really think that? You were like, oh, I don't like her, or whatever it was that you were thinking about her. And then some voice in your head said, wait a second, do I really think that? And then you're like, I don't know if I really think that. And that voice in your head saying that is like the wisdom voice in my mind. That was what allowed you to have perspective. That's the word perspective. You know the word perspective?
I know the word perspective, Dad.
Okay, I'm just getting used to how smart you are. So I don't always know if you know the words I'm using, so I'm asking. But I think that voice in your head that made you question, do I really think that? Or, why am I feeling so mad at Dad? Oh, I'm in a grumpy mood. And then you can tell me and say, oh, Dad, I'm sorry. I'm just feeling grumpy today. That's what I think helps us feel better and be healthier, is being able to have that kind of awareness, the word awareness. So I think that's the most important thing, is you having awareness about yourself and what's going on with you, and then maybe being able to share something about that with other people.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of what's been happening, but I just have to say, I don't feel like comfortable to tell everyone everything. And I feel like I'm allowed to have some things to myself, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. It's taken me a while to have to learn that, actually. I'm glad that you've learned that so soon in your life, that while it's good to be able to know what you feel and share it with other people, there are some things that are just for you, right?
Yeah. And,
did you have something you were about to say? Because I thought of something I wanted to ask you.
No, you can go.
Well, what I was going to ask is I've got emails from actually from another kid, and then either from parents of kids who also have dealt with OCD and had troubles, and some of them are still having a really hard time. And I'm wondering, what would you say to other kids who kind of had stuff happen to them that happened to you? Is there anything that you would say to them? To help them, or to give them any ideas that might be helpful?
Okay, well, I'm not a trained therapist, but to think about it, I'd probably say, think in your mind, do you and people don't have the exact same OCD, but for me, what I felt, my body was really uncomfortable. Maybe some other OCDs might be their emotions, they couldn't have any emotions, or stuff like that. But any of the stuff that you're feeling or that you're doing to yourself, think, is that kind of what you deserve? Do you really deserve that to happen to you by your own self? And just kind of really think about it for a little bit, why am I doing this?
Yeah, and I guess sometimes it's easier, it was early on, you weren't able to ask those questions as good as you are now. So sometimes I just think maybe it takes some time and people around you to be understanding, probably. It took me and your mom a while to figure out how to help you, because at first I don't think I was helping very much, but as the time went on,
you tried.
We tried, but me and your mom learned, I think, how to be there for you better. Did you think that too?
I have to say back then, I didn't have much of a perspective. Yeah. I just felt kind of like really crazy. Mm-hmm. I just kind of felt like it was just hard to like see anything because I was just really mad, and I wasn't really picking up on anything around the room. I was there, but I felt like I was physically there, but I didn't feel like I was truly mentally there.
Mm. Well, I have to say I couldn't be happier that you're doing better, and to sit here like this with you and talk to you like this, I don't know, it really feels like we've come a long way. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy how much can happen in a little over a year, but it's nice to feel like we're on a better track.
Mm-hmm. So, is there anything else that like you would feel like you would want to talk about, or
I guess
other things that have been going on?
I mean, the only other thing that I would bring up is because it's something that I brought up last time we talked, is your sister, because I still feel like that's like an ongoing thing.
Get me started.
I mean, I just think that your relationship continues to evolve and change, but sometimes I worry about it a little bit, the way your sister treats you, and then sometimes even the way you treat her. So I don't know, is there anything you want to say and following up on how things are with you and your sister now?
Other than just history of sisters fighting.
I mean, there's sometimes where it seems like you guys connect more than you used to.
Yeah, I feel like we're more like on each other's sides, except, see, I try to go on her side, and she doesn't really return that. Like,
hey, Mom. We're recording a podcast right now. We are live on the podcast, and Mom just walked in. Mom's making another cameo.
Sorry.
I think she did that last time, though.
Yes!
That's beautiful. The last time we recorded a podcast, Mom walked in on us, too. That's amazing. I can't believe it.
But last time, Mom said you had to take off the podcast, and I'm still mad about that.
Oh, that's how this has to be the ending to this podcast, because that was how the first one ended, when Mom came in and told us, I think, dinner was ready or something like that. I can't remember. But
okay, you don't have to finish right now. It's all good. Don't worry. Whatever you need to finish.
Okay.
But I don't want to finish it now.
Okay, well, we don't have to. We can finish what we were talking about. We'll be down in a little bit, Mom. I love that. I love that Mom just made a cameo.
Okay.
You were talking about your sister when your mom came in.
So I feel like I'm on her side more, like, no offense, but sisters are kind of supposed to, like, I don't know, like, kind of, like, plan secret stuff, like, kind of, like, and sometimes no offense, Dad or Mom, but sometimes the parents kind of, like, misunderstood what, like, kind of happens, and then it gets into a fight. And I feel like I always take my sister's side, but Rosalind doesn't really, like, care. And when I'm trying to, like, defend her, she just gets kind of mad and says, "Let me speak," even though she wasn't really speaking before. And I start talking because she wasn't speaking. And then when she's not speaking, she says, "Let me speak." And it's just confusing because, I don't know, I'm speaking. I should kind of be the one saying, "Let me speak," because she wasn't anyway. But then when I ever kind of like get in like kind of trouble or in a fight with the parents, which is less often, but still, she never really like goes on my side or like defends me. She just says, I have to do my homework. Bye. And it's kind of like mean because I do kind stuff, and then after it, she kind of like acknowledges it and sometimes says thank you, but it's never like, well, she doesn't ever say thank you, I have to be honest, but she acknowledges it. I feel like they're just like, we kind of know what's happening, and we can just like kind of connect a little bit, and we just feel like that we both were on each other's sides. But then when I'm like in trouble, Rosalind doesn't really care, and even though she acknowledges that I'm on her side, she doesn't really ever return anything.
Well,
but she has improved.
I think that your sister often is thinking about herself more than other people.
And nowadays, it's better instead of being mean to me, she's not mean to me anymore, but now she just kind of like goes in her room and like ignores me and never like actually talks to me that much. And when she does, she says, Annabelle, what the heck are you doing?
Okay. Well, I think part of that is because there's 5 years in between you, and now your sister just turned 13, so you guys are at an age where you're a little bit apart. But I think as you get older and she gets older and maybe more mature, then I think you guys are going to come together more and more. That's my hope.
I hope to. I wish we were more close, like at least like at the very most 2 years apart, but does it have to be 5? Because then we can't really understand each other at all.
Well, I think, like I said, as you get older, you'll be able to. And you know what? That's the kind of thing that you don't have any control over. We didn't have any control, and it was a miracle that you came. So we're grateful for it, and we just live our lives out with the hands that we get dealt, you know.
Yeah, also, when she just leaves me alone, I feel like when we ever are together, we're probably on the screen. And if I'm not on the screen, I'm like, hey, Rosalind, do you want to, like, do something? I can't hear you. I have my earbuds on me. But you just heard me because and she said, no, I didn't just hear you. And I'm like, but Rosalind, what the? And she's like, what do you mean? And it's like so clear that she can hear me.
I know, those darn earbuds. I don't want to talk about the screens. That's like an ongoing thing. Me and your mom trying to set some boundaries around the screens.
But they are addictive, so it's hard to like.
They are.
I'm
glad that you hear you say that, because sometimes your sister like acts like they're not, but you know that they are. So.
Yeah, but if they're addictive, they're hard to make them not addictive. But I try my best, and Rosalind just doesn't care and goes into the addiction.
Well.
And gets obsessed.
We're all working on that. Me. Everybody in the house is trying to set good boundaries.
I never see Mom on the phone unless she's texting someone.
Yeah, well, we can all learn a lot from Mom, I think.
You go more on the screens because you have to, like, do podcasts and get work ready and upload all your new yoga lessons, teachings, last thingies, I don't know. But you have to go on the screens more so you can make money for the family and do your job correctly.
It's true. It's true.
So, yeah. Speaking of that, this is a random question that's kind of unrelated, but where do you get your money from if you don't have a boss?
Well, you see, I am what you call self-employed, so I make money myself without having a boss.
But so then does that mean that you get money from like your do we call them like students? I don't know what to call them. The people who listen to your
well, I think people who take my classes.
Do they?
Yeah, they pay for the classes. That's right.
Okay.
I'm my own boss, so I don't have a boss because I just do my own thing.
Yeah, so I'm asking. Wait, okay. I was asking where you get your money from if you have a boss, but you just answered that question. Yeah. I mean, if you don't have a boss, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think some people get a job and then they have a boss who pays them, and then some people, I guess they would call that entrepreneurs, who start their own businesses, and then they are their own bosses. And there's some jobs that you can do that in more than others.
And your business has gone very, very well.
I mean, yeah, I think so. I mean, we were able to move from Brooklyn and get this house.
I don't know. Does Mom have a job?
Yeah, Mom does work. I mean, Mom's an artist, but she also, has been doing painting for people. She painted for Siri and all those people. And there's a lot of people who want to paint. And honestly, the last year with everything that was going on, Mom didn't really have time and space. But this year, I think she
is she painting like random people's houses?
She might be, yeah.
What?
What's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong. But I don't know when I'm going to school, she's like, it's like, ring, 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 ring. Hello, can I get my house painted? Of course, sure.
Yeah.
She comes over.
That's exactly it.
What?
I've been talking with her about making a website for it and like making it more of a thing. So yeah, Mom's gonna have her own business too.
I asked her what she wanted to have a job, but I didn't know that she was doing it already. Well,
I think she really wants to make her art, but because she has this opportunity to also bring some money for the family, she wants to do that too. Yeah.
Good mommy.
Yeah, she's a great mommy. Well, speaking of which, Mom came home, and I don't know what she wanted to tell us, and it's also getting closer.
I don't think she wanted to tell us anything. She put that bag up from my room from the organization for the sentimental.
I see. Oh, yeah, she's been cleaning your room out with you. Yeah. Well, I think it might be a good time to bring our podcast here to a close. We can always do another one in the future. But here's the thing you have to learn about podcasts. If you let them go on for too long, then they just get wandering and like all over the place and they get less interesting. But if you just keep them tight, we said some really interesting things, I think. I think it's a really good follow-up conversation from the other one that we had. So I feel like it's a good moment to do it.
Can I say like one more thing?
Sure, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I feel like I used to feel like all perfect and my room had to be perfect. Everything had to be straight and perfect and wonderfully perfect. And now I've changed that idea. And I used to think it was really bad because my room was getting messier and I was really, really worried, even though my room really wasn't that messy. Now I realized my room really doesn't need to be extremely clean and perfectly neat. And but it still needs organization, so we're organizing it. And yeah.
Well, I think that it's interesting the way sometimes like the spaces that we have like reflect where we are. So the way your room was before compared to the way you and your mom are reorganizing it now is very interesting. I think it kind of expresses how we're doing, and so that things are more spacious and they don't have to be so perfect. I think that's a good way to be.
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah, sure.
Before we end it.
What do you want to ask me?
Because you've been asking me the main
Yeah,
questions.
if you've got questions for me, you can ask me any questions you want.
I wanted to know, this is random, but, what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? Well, I think I find fun in a lot of different things that I do. I find fun in playing my bass. I find fun in listening to other podcasts, and when I take my walks. I think roller skating is really fun to me. You know how much I like when we've gone roller skating?
Yes, I really like roller skating. I feel like you would really like ice skating.
I would love to. We don't really have good places around here, but those are all things that are fun for me.
I did one ice skating time, and it was really fun. But I'm still not the best person at ice skating. Not that good at
But I have an idea about fun, which is that someone once said to me, you make your own fun. And that if you can learn to make your own fun, then life is like way better. So I don't need I need this because that's fun. I can make fun in myself with anything we do, you know? And then that way, life's way more fun. You know?
But I just wanted to point out, I really don't like when people, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but when people are always like, it's always better to be happy, never be sad or angry. Like, I feel like you're allowed to be angry and you're allowed to be annoyed. But some people are just like, remember, it's always good to only be happy, calm, and proud. But you are allowed to feel sad and annoyed and angry, but you're not allowed to go insanely angry.
Yes, there's some within reason. But I think that's a very smart thing that you're saying. That was something for me to learn too, because I used to think that being healthy meant that I was going to feel good all the time. But really, I think that healthy means the full range of emotions, even the ones that you don't like. So that if you never felt crappy or you never felt angry or annoyed, that wouldn't be healthy. That being healthy means feeling all of those things. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you completely.
And just before we end this podcast, I have a very, very random, unrelated question for you.
Okay. There's a lot of random, unrelated questions here. Go ahead. What's the next one?
What's the picture of this podcast of me gonna be? Because last time I looked weird, but you insisted that we had to use that picture.
I have no idea, but I'm happy for you to pick it out. If you want to decide which one it is, we can pick it out together. I like the last one that we used. I thought it was really captured you, but we'll pick one together. How about that?
Okay.
Does that seem good? Mm-hmm. All right, well, should we call it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for doing this, sweetie. I love you so much, and I'm glad that we took this time together.
Mm-hmm. I love you. Bye.
And there you go. I hope that filled you up some. It sure did for me. I mean, it's easy for me. She's my daughter, and I love her with all my heart. I imagine for those of you who've followed along closely over the years and over the last 2 to 3 years especially, that it might also fill you up some too. I'm just amazed by what I see as an emotional intelligence far beyond her years. Her ability to reflect, and even that one moment in our conversation where I wanted to be hopeful that if she has a downturn again, that she'll be able to talk with us about it. But she was honest. She said, I'd like to say that, Dad, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. And to me, that is actually a sign of being healthy, that we're not kidding ourselves, but we're meeting the challenge of our lives as it presents itself to us. And I just, I don't know. I don't know if I'm really in much of a position to say anything else about this. I do hope that it was meaningful to anybody who's still here listening, and that you could appreciate it, hearing a young person speak with the clarity of a child's innocence and heart. hopefully there was something in it for you. I want to add that for those of you who've been listening to the recent episodes where I've been wanting to talk about God and a higher power and prayer, the main driver of that is when I look back over what helped me most in the last year, what helped me get through what I think is perhaps one of the most challenging times I've ever experienced in my adult life. It's very clear that faith and patience and prayer was what helped me the most. And in receiving some guidance and in receiving the love of a creator, as I've said many times in the show, I felt held in a new way by the mystery. Instead of the mystery just being this like void of non-duality, of just an idea that all is one, it became more real. It became more tangible. The mystery held me like a father in the way that I wish to hold my daughters. And it is kind of confusing because the ideas about God that we have in our heads and the words that have been used to communicate things about God are so fraught with semantical pitfalls, because someone says something about God or Jesus, and what they're saying isn't really what we're taking to be what they're meaning, That's a longer conversation, which I'm going to be coming back to in future episodes. But I'm saying it because in the past, when I talked about Annabelle and everything that was going on, and people reached out to me who were dealing with similar situations, yes, it was helpful to educate myself about the protocols on how we treat kids with OCD and generalized anxiety disorder. Yes, it was important for me to trust in the clinicians and do my best to be discerning and utilize Western medicine protocols that have been shown to help a lot of people. But none of that had nearly as much impact on my ability to process what was happening and be there for her than my relationship to a higher power, to God. And I'm going to continue to explore that and look to understand it more in future episodes. And I just want to communicate that to any of you out there. I'm not saying you should do what I do or think what I think, but all the other stuff that I've looked into, all the yoga philosophy and all the breathing and moving practice and meditation practice and all the other things that I have done, they certainly helped. They certainly created a context and a perceptual lens for me to operate with. But it was the Ishvara Pranidhana. It was the getting down on your knees at the feet of the Lord that made the most difference. So, for whatever that might be worth to anyone out there listening, and I guess as I look to bid you adieu here, I'm imagining that at some point in the future, when Annabelle is an adult, she might listen back to this. And I feel this moment of sitting here now, a week and a half before we leave for Hawaii, and I think about everything that's happened over the last year, and I wonder who she'll be and where she'll be in the years to come. And just to say I love you, sweetie. All right, y'all. We'll be back to our usual fare next week. I got lots of good stuff in the can. Until then, what do you say we be kind? Let's be kind to ourselves. Let's be kind to others. And I will talk to you again soon. Please take care. Cheers.